Welcome back to the Mystery Society Season 4, Lost at Sea. We've got more tales of the scary undercurrents and the ocean and all that. Really, nothing's been scary about the sea so far, I think, actually.
The whale.
The whale was scary.
The whale was really scary.
That's not the sea's fault. So today we're going to be talking about something that's going to be a bit of a theme in this story and the next story I'm going to be telling, which is the Northwest Passage.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Nate, and today we're going to be talking about Franklin's Lost Expedition. So we should talk a little bit about the Northwest Passage. So it's this mysterious waterway that they were trying to find that basically went through where Greenland is. They were theorizing that you could go from Britain up to Greenland and then find some kind of a passage around there to go to East Asia. So the reason they wanted to do this was because the Ottoman Empire had a monopoly on land trading. So Britain was like, we got to knock these guys off of the monopoly. We got to figure something out. We got to find this Northwest Passage. Because they believed if they found that, they would own sea trading. Mm-hmm. This has been going on since the 2nd century that people have been trying to find this. And when our story takes place, it is the 1800s, the mid-1800s. Britain wanted to do another expedition to try to find the Northwest Passage, and they decided that the person who would lead it would be Sir John Franklin, who was a knight, obviously, Sir John Franklin, but he was also an esteemed naval veteran. He had been shipwrecked on desolate islands, he fought in large battles, and he's actually helped map a fair bit of the North American coast and led successful expeditions into the Arctic.
All bullet points on his resume.
Right, yeah, and so he's just getting jobs, man. He's getting gigs everywhere. He's on Upwork, updating his resume and everything. They think this guy can do it because North America, the coast of North America, is basically where they're looking for the Northwest Passage.
Which coast of North America?
The East Coast.
Okay.
So in between the East Coast of North America and Europe, north of there should be some kind of a passage, which is why it's so hard to find. That's such a big area.
Yeah.
Sir John Franklin was put in charge of the Her Majesty's Erebus and Her Majesty's Terror, which were two massive iron-layered ships. It was equipped with a heating system because it was like an Arctic ship.
Okay.
So below deck, it was actually steam heat in all of the rooms. On board, there were 24 officers and 110 sailors between both ships. They also had 3 years worth of food, which included 32,000 pounds of preserved meat, 1,000 pounds of raisins, 580 gallons of pickles, 7,088 pounds of tobacco, and 2,700 pounds of candles. They also had a whole library worth of books on board for when they got, bored and they needed entertainment.
Why not just watch TV?
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just bring their phones.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's the real mystery.
Huh. I should have put that in here. So finally, they get the crew together, they set sail on May 19th, 1845. The plan is just to basically look for the Northwest Passage wherever it may be. They stopped first in Stromness, Scotland's Orkney Islands, and the Whalefish Islands, which are in Disco Bay off the west coast of Greenland. So I've never heard of most of those places before, but if you can imagine, we're just basically on the coast of Greenland going island to island. On these islands, they wrote some letters home, they refilled whatever supplies they needed, and then they set sail for where they believe the Northwest Passage should be. In the letters home, the men were letting their families know that the captain was kind of like leading with an iron fist a little bit. Mm-hmm. He had all these rules. He was like, you're not allowed to cuss, you're not allowed to be drunk, you're not allowed to do all of the sailor stuff that sailors love to do. And this actually led to 5 sailors being sent home. Literally, they took like a lifeboat and they were like,
wow,
go back home. And to give you an idea of what life was like on the coast of Greenland looking for the Northwest Passage, temperatures would have been around -31 degrees Fahrenheit. So below deck there was heating, but if you were standing on deck, the wind would have been harsh enough that it would actually pull the skin off of your face. If you had hair on your face, it would grab onto the hair and just rip it off. And then if you didn't have gloves on, you would immediately get frostbite. I have sort of mixed information here because this doesn't make any sense to me. It says that the officers had quarters below deck, but the sailors were actually left to string up hammocks on the masts, which to me indicates that they might have actually been outside. If there's over 100 sailors, you can't fit them all below deck.
Well, the mast still extends below deck through the ship, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm just thinking how many people could you have tethered like that? Unless they're like right on top of each other, maybe?
I don't know.
It's an interesting thing to think about.
Well, I have seen them stacked like that. Like,
That's probably what they did then. In July 1845, the Erebus and Terror were seen for the last time by two whaling vessels off of the coast of Canada's Baffin Islands. That was the last time the ships were ever seen active again. In 1848, after 3 years, nobody's seen them, Lady Franklin, Sir John Franklin's wife, she's a very, very strong-willed woman. She went to the British Empire and she said, my husband's missing, he's an esteemed knight, you gotta go find him. And they said, yeah, I don't know if we're gonna do that. And she led like a boots-on-the-ground marketing campaign throughout Britain and got like all of the people together, and they were like, wait, he's an esteemed knight, we gotta go look for him. And Britain was like, God damn, all right, we'll do it. And so over the next 40 years, they led about 40 expeditions to go try to find him and the crew.
over the next how many years?
40 years.
40 years, 40 expeditions?
Yeah, and so they
Jeez.
stopped after that. They were like, we're done. Like, we can't find him. So the first bit of evidence they actually found in 1850, which was 2 years after Lady Franklin started her whole marketing campaign and all of that, whatever you want to call it.
So they've been gone for 5 years?
Yeah, so total they've been gone for 5 years. A fleet of 13 ships from the US and Britain were searching in the Canadian Arctic, and they found a stretch of land that they called Beachy Island.
Beachy?
Beachy, yeah.
Brilliant.
They found a primitive camp along that island, and there were 3 graves there for John Hartnell, John Torrington, and William Brainey, who were all sailors on that expedition.
Interesting.
The graves were dated 1846, 1 year after they were last
Just
seen.
one year into their
Yeah, 1 year.
journey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because
No.
in July 1845, that was the last time they were seen. 1846 are these graves. So they were only just on their way about 2 months into their journey when they disappeared. And then a year later, these graves were made.
Jeez.
Nothing else is seen for another 4 years until 1854, when Scottish explorer John Rae spoke with a group of Inuits in Pelly Bay who had some items that belonged to some of the men from the expedition. And he was like, ooh, whoa, hey, where did you get all this?
Yeah.
And the Inuits were like, oh, yeah, come here. And
Right.
brings him to a pile of human remains, all mutilated and destroyed, and the bones have knife marks in them. And from this, John Rae said, from the mutilated state of many of the bodies and the contents of the kettles, it is evident that our wretched countrymen had been driven to the last dread alternative as a means of sustaining life. So that was the next evidence. That's in 1854. In 1859, breakthrough evidence is found. In 1853, Francis Leopold McClintock and his rescue party found a note on a place called Victory Point that was dubbed the Victory Point Note. And this is sort of...
These guys are amazing with names.
I know, right?
Beachy Island. What should we
Victory
name this
Point
note we
note.
found here at Victory Point, eh? Victory Point note?
That's good. It's kind of hard to explain what this note is, so try to go along with me here. It's a formal document from the ship that had like printed text on it. In the margins of that, they wrote the story of what happened to the ships.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so if you can imagine, it's like printed formal
Right.
text and then all around, please help us,
You
please
have
help us."
to, you know, it's a little subtle. You have to read between the lines.
Yes, absolutely. The Victory Point note was dated April 25th, 1848.
1848.
So graves found 1846,
Yes.
went missing 1845. This note was dated 1848. In the note, it explains that Captain Franklin died on June 11th, 1847. So they've been without their captain for a full year. He died 2 years into them being missing.
Right.
And 1 year after the other guys. They had long abandoned both ships, which were both stuck entirely in ice since September 12th of 1846. So a year into their expedition, they must have gotten as far as they could have gotten and then literally lodged their ships deep in like ice. They actually, I did not write this down, I apologize, but from what I read on the Victory Point note, they were with the ship for a long time. I think up until the point that the captain died, they were still with the ship. So the ships were stuck in September of 1846. From what I remember, I believe they were there for about a full year. After June 11th, 1847, when Captain Franklin died, they were still with the ship and then made the decision to just walk and see where they could get to. They would send search parties out to try to get more rations, and they would all come back and go, yeah, it's just ice. I don't really know what you want me to do. By the time the note was written, 24 men had died, and the remaining were planning to head towards the Great Fish River the next day. And no more hard evidence was found in any of those searches by the British Empire.
So they said only how many had died? 24 had died at that point?
At that point, yeah, 24 had died by the time they wrote the note, including Captain Franklin.
Out of
It would have been
100
125-ish people.
So they still have 100 people left.
Yeah,
Without a ship.
Yeah, without 2 ships.
Wandering around eating each other on beaches.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And here's some more info. In 1984, the bodies of Hartnell, Brain, and Torrington, those 3 that were found first, were exhumed. And there's video of this and pictures and everything.
Really?
When they opened the coffin, he's basically, or all 3 of them were basically enclosed in a full block of ice. And so the bodies were perfectly preserved.
No way.
Yeah, so they exhumed them and researched them, and I read the medical journal, or it's not really a medical, I guess it is a medical article, but it's somebody interpreting all of that and then giving what they believe may have happened to these people. So to give you an idea of what the crew of the Terror and the Erebus were kind of going through, when the bodies were exhumed and studied, they found severe signs of malnutrition, pneumonia, and fatal levels of lead poisoning. It turns out, from what scientists believe, there was one guy responsible for tinning 8,000 cans of rations for this journey.
Tinning?
Tinning, yeah, like so he's got a solder with lead solder, and he's like soldering tin cans shut. He apparently did it so sloppily and like he was doing it slowly and sloppily, and so the lead inside the can was just seeping down into the food. And so every single ration that they took with them was poisoned by lead. And the bodies were found to have, I believe, 200 and something parts of lead per gallon of blood or whatever it is. And the Inuits on the island had 2 parts per gallon or whatever the measurement is. They also had signs of scurvy because they had vitamin C deficiency. At this point, the Royal Navy was prescribing people vitamin C. You had to eat a lemon every day. But they had apparently boiled the lemons to preserve them, and I guess that takes out whatever prevents scurvy, like the citric acid or whatever it is. All of it's tainted by lead. They have lead poisoning, which means that they're paranoid, they're anemic, they're not in the right mental state whatsoever. So that probably led to almost all of those decisions, like leaving the ship, leaving their food supply because they're just getting sicker and sicker. I'll leave you with this. They did exhume between 6 and 14 more people's remains on that same island. And then in 2014 and 2016 respectively, they found the shipwrecks.
Thank you. I was just about to ask.
They found the shipwrecks of the Erebus and the Terror in perfect condition on the ocean floor, like the Arctic floor or whatever. They left them there. And to this day, divers go down and explore them, and they study them for like how ships were built and how they were constructed and everything in the day, because they're so perfectly preserved. There is one little spooky bit though. On the ships, every single door was left open, wide open, except for the captain's, which was shut. Ooh.
Can't go in the captain's quarters.
Ooh. Okay. So that's the story of Captain Franklin's last expedition. So the Northwest Passage to me is like, it's almost like this Bermuda Triangle type like entity. I have like 3 or 4 more stories that are really short about the Northwest Passage. I'm thinking about doing like just a series on them.
Oh, you should. It literally sounds like you just had a ship of poisoned, like almost like mad, like crazy people wandering the ocean. Like,
yeah, and
can you imagine that today? Like you find a cruise ship and they're like, where have you guys been? And they're all just like raving mad and they've just been wandering the sea for years.
Yeah, man, that's so crazy. Oh man, yeah, and I mean, it's just so, like all of the decisions they made had to have been like coming down to all of that. The scurvy.
The lead poisoning.
Lead poisoning, it's so crazy. Yeah, and there's all these theories where people are like, well, maybe something happened with the Inuits, they were kidnapped, they were captured. So there's a lot of theories about like, yeah, we found the bodies, but you know, how did they die? Who ate these people? Did the Inuits eat them? Did they eat each other? Totally. There's a lot of like open-ended questions.
But here's the really crappy part of all that is they ate all this lead and they got poisoned and they're like, shit, can't eat our food, guess we gotta eat each other. But they're all full of lead, so they just keep eating more lead.
Yeah. Like, oh no! Oh no, I never thought about that. Oh, that's too bad. Well, they didn't know. They didn't know what lead was.
No, they had no clue. They were, oh jeez.
So yeah, that's our first story about the Northwest Passage. Again, my next story is going to be about the Northwest Passage. So thank you guys for listening to this first one about Captain John Franklin. Next week, Taylor, what are you going to be telling us about?
Next week, I will be telling you the mystery of the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley, which some of you may have heard of. It was a pretty widely covered case.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check in the description box. Taylor and I always have all kinds of things going on. Links to other playlists and things like that will be in the description as well. Thank you guys again for all of your support. We're really excited about this season and what we're going to be bringing to the table other than just the main season of the Mystery Society. So thank you again for watching. We'll see you next time for Taylor's story.
Bye.